Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. I'm 7 Degrees of Wisdom, and this is Kesha from at textarot and at Wealth of Myself on YouTube. We both are professional tarot readers, and we are deeply on our spiritual path. Today, we're going to be talking about showing up authentically for yourself, even when you don't really feel like it, and kind of running away from your feelings. So this is something that's near and dear to both of our hearts. We've been struggling with this. That's basically going to be what we're going to talk about today, because I know everyone is at this point at one time or another. I've been at this point for at least a month now, kind of feeling not all the way in and kind of forcing myself. Keisha and I both, do deep meditations every day, and we do yoga practices and all of those things. And so we were just, talking earlier about how sometimes we get in these ruts where we don't really want to show up, and then we worry about not showing up correctly if, we're feeling any kind of way, and how to get yourself out of that situation. And I think that's very important for everyone. So, Keisha, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, and then we'll just take a deep dive right into it, because I think this is a very important subject.
Definitely. So I am Kesha, and at Textarot is where you'll find me on Instagram. That's where I do my tarot readings. At Wealth of Myself on Instagram, you'll see my daily quotes, words of inspiration, encouragement, support, general truths from the universe. And then on YouTube, you'll find me at Wealth of Myself, where I produce videos related to teaching you how to mold the ethers of the universe to the contours of your desires. And really, what that's going to mean is, and how that relates to today's talk, is being your authentic self in all the ways that's wonderful, and especially on those days when it's not. So I thought it'd be a good place to start with the exchange that Megan and I had via text this morning. Just a little bit of background. Megan mentioned that she's been going through it for the last month. I've been going through it for the last however fucking long. Like, it's been a while. But you never know that when you meet me, because one, I carry my full self into any interaction, but I don't bring my issues and my problems, because that's not fair to the person I'm in front of, nor is it fair to me, because I don't want to spread that around.
I'm the
So
same way.
I keep, you know, there's a way of showing up authentically where you can still bring 100% of yourself to the table, but that doesn't mean you spew your problems all over anybody who might listen. And the reason for that is because that dilutes your personal power and your ability to resolve it. So I've been dealing with the things I've been dealing with in the background. I show up with a smile, and I'm ready to work when I'm ready to work. And this week has kind of had me by the tail, and I should I laugh because when I sat down this morning to write my journal, is to like try to make sense of what's happened in the last couple of days. I likened it to a card that I'm familiar with in the tarot, and I knew it was a woman pulling a tiger by its tail, and what I had felt like was exactly that. And so I pulled the card this morning to like look at it to see what it was, and it's the Princess of Wands from the 12th deck. I'll bring it a little closer.
Yeah.
And normally when I pull this card and I see it from, and I'm reading for myself, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm the princess moving through and forward, and I'm bringing all of this other stuff with me. But this time today, the last couple of days, I was most definitely the tiger being pulled through it. And so I woke up early this morning knowing that we're going to do this podcast, and I wanted to have my mind.
Oh, I think we
But
lost you
I
there.
just felt like, and oftentimes what you all don't know, the audience, is that Megan and I have a quick conversation before we start, and we kind of decide on what we're going to talk about. And I sent her a text this morning, and I said, "Morning, please think of a couple of things we might talk about for today's pod. I don't know that I have it in me to vamp for an hour." Because I knew that I didn't have it in me to come up with a topic and to just talk about anything. But that was at 8:53 Eastern Standard Time. Megan, in her kind soul, wrote me back, okay, we can reschedule if you need to. An obvious like gesture of grace to me. And I'm like, well, yeah. And so I wrote back, to be fair, I haven't showered yet or done yoga, and that might help. So I reached out because I knew I needed to reach out, but I hadn't done all of my practices that get me centered. So that was one. And then in response to her gracious offer of rescheduling, I said, live as normally as possible is always the directive in face of challenges. Rescheduling feels like running away or trying to hide. I think it's important to show up even when we're not happy or perfect. I don't know, maybe that's the topic given the energies. What do you think? And she wrote back, I think that's a perfect idea, actually. I've been feeling that way lately anyway. And I said, okay. And the reason I share that is because that is an authentic exchange between two people who are very much aware of themselves and the energies about them, acknowledging that it is not always perfect. And I know you all hear this every now and again, but if you spend any amount of time on social media, and we all spend too much fucking time on social media,
Mhm.
we are getting the highlights of other people, and everything looks perfect, and everybody's trying to fucking sell you something, and
Mhm.
it's always looking perfect. And if you were on this walk with spirit, it is most definitely not, which is not
Mhm.
at all to sway you from taking the walk, because it is beautiful, and I'm going to get to why it is in just a minute. um and when you first, I think typically what happens when people come to a path of spirituality, whatever it may be, they're living the way they're living, and it's just not working. And
Yeah.
so they get an insight from someone, or they hear something somewhere, and they find themselves at a bookstore, or something falls in their lap, and they're like, oh, maybe this is for me right now. And so they start this walk, and generally speaking, whatever you read on any spiritual path, it tells you how much better because you're on it.
Yeah.
And when you initially start, that is so true. It's like things start to happen out of nowhere. Everything is beautiful. People that you need to talk to reach out. You find a lot of money in the street. Like things happen unexpectedly, blah, blah, blah. And it seems like everything is working. And oh my God, I'm so glad I found this new path because now it's working for me and my life is better. And then you hit your first set of challenges where all of the things that brought you to that place of wanting and needing something start to creep back in, right? So when you found that first bit of spirituality, you're looking up and you're looking at it, and you're putting all of your focus there. So everything is good because you're getting new information that's on a higher vibration than where you have been. And
Mhm.
so you've been looking up and looking forward to that. And so that allows space for something good to happen. And so you have these good things happen, and you're so excited, and that encourages more good things to happen. But then who you are and the things that you bring with you begin to creep back in. And well, that comes up because it's ready for healing. Now that you're at this higher vibration, it's time to resolve all these things that brought you to your knees, so to speak. And so we feel like, oh, it's not working. And I'm like, no, baby, it's most definitely working. that's
Yeah.
that's the movement. That's you stirred the pot and rocked the boat, um, because you're trying. You're obviously ready. And when you've been at it for a while, it feels like two things. One, how much more could I possibly feel? I've been doing this forever. Like, how much more can there possibly be?
Yeah.
And two, there's always so much more. So I'm going to be fine with where I am right now. Like, let me be for just a minute so I can breathe.
Yeah.
And I, I think based on what I'm feeling, what Megan's feeling, what I'm seeing in general from the people, and also the astrological readings, we've been saying this for a while. We are closing that 16-year cycle, Pluto and Capricorn.
Mhm.
We're now moving into a new space. We just had the end of Mercury retrograde, which means what, a day or two ago, we just moved out of the shadow period, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know about you all, but the last Mercury retrograde was probably the gentlest I've ever experienced, and also the one I've been the most excited for. And I think that's because these other cycles were ending, and Mercury in retrograde felt like a tremendous opportunity to resolve things of the past and really tie up those loose ends, revisit what had been plaguing us before.
Mhm.
And um,
Let me let my cat out. She is driving me insane. I am so sorry.
sure, sure, we'll hold space.
So sorry about that.
No
She is
worries.
very difficult. Okay. And
Life is
it was
happening.
very loud on my end, so I was
It,
having trouble concentrating. I'm so sorry.
no worries.
Okay.
Um, where was I?
You're talking about the astrological
Right, that's all. So
implications.
the
Yeah.
right. So it was a great time, this Mercury retrograde, to really revisit those things of the cycles that are obviously ending and just put a bow on them and be finished with them. But the shadow period was probably more pronounced for some of you, for me in particular, because you were still resolving, some of that stuff. And now we're in this, what, we've got a week or so. Mercury's, shadow periods ended, so we'll say that's done. We had new moon and the September 9 and 9/9 portal open,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Portals are going to open onto, and if we've been doing the work that was required of us during the retrograde, we are now cleared and ready to move into something new. We've been putting out our intentions forever anyway, right? So we move into this 9/9 portal. It's the new moon. Those are coming close together. Um, and now we're a few days out from eclipse season.
Yes, we
And
are.
I
This
don't
is
and I don't know about the rest of you, but typically speaking, during eclipse season, shit starts to move really fast and it
yeah.
spins you out of one reality into another. I can give you an example from my own world, and I don't remember uh, which cycle of eclipses it was in, but this was this was 2004. My boyfriend of 8 years and I had broken up kind of quickly and somewhat unexpectedly, but blessedly all the same, right?
Mhm.
And it was during that month in the eclipse cycles where I was going back to Louisville to wrap up my house there and also move to Korea. And no joke, like there was I at the time I wasn't as present with the energies. I mean, I knew of them, but hadn't been this deeply ensconced.
Mhm.
But every where I turned, there was a blessing. Someone reaching out, someone saying, "Hey, I'm really glad to have known you," or glad you're my friend, or whatever. People showing up with resources that I needed, didn't even know I needed, but obviously did, that helped me make that transition from Louisville to Korea. And then, of course, I get into Korea, and eclipse are, those cycles are happening. What is it, 2 weeks and a month apart, like between new moon and full moon, and so that kept happening. So then I got to Korea, and I don't know anybody there, obviously, but I had all this help and assistance. And if I had looked back on my life between um, the beginning of that month to the end of that month, like it was 180 degrees, right? It
Yeah.
happened, and it happened really fast. Like when things started to move, it happened really fast. And I think where we are right now is, we've been knowing for what, 3-4 months now. We've been saying it's coming, it's coming. You're going to step into a bigger energy. You're going to step into the grander piece of the grander aspect of yourself.
Yes.
And we've been saying it's coming, it's coming. And I encourage people to say it's here, so that we're not keeping it into as a future state. And here we are right on the cusp of it. And so a lot of, you're going to hear more chatter about, September 17th, I believe, is
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
our eclipse starts. And so there's this period right before where it's kind of quiet, but then it's kind of not. And one of the things that I have been working on is I'm stepping fully into the space of who I am right now and how I want to be. And that's hard when practical real world reality butts up against that and says you still have these bills to pay, you still must do this, you still have to, and it's like, yes, those things will be met, but I will meet them on my terms. You will not direct the course of my action. And so I've been holding really strong to that, but it's hard in the face of the wind to
Yes.
tell it to calm down. But look, I've been through seminary and I've had the homework where I'm supposed to do the acts of Jesus, because these things, he says, these things I do, you shall do in greater. So if Jesus stilled the storm, I too am supposed to be able to stand up and still the storm. But we don't have practice in that because we haven't grown up knowing that God is the Father in the way that quite that he did, right? So I'm practicing this in real time, and I'm standing in the face of these storms that are hitting me. And the reason I say it's important to show up and move as normally as possible is because when you start to change things around and, you know, try to fend off this ball and catch this one over here, you're taking yourself out of alignment with your purpose. Our friend is back.
Yes, she's back
Um,
now.
um, you take yourself out of alignment, and the blessings that were trying to come to you, the things that you have been asking for, that you were trying to receive, you're not in a position to receive because you're over here trying to catch this and you're over here trying to forestall
Yes.
that. And so it is absolutely important to stand firm on what you believe if you want that belief to become your reality, right?
Yeah.
So Exodus 14:13 will tell us, fear not, stand still, see the salvation of the Lord. What is it? The Egyptians you fight today, Jehovah will stand for you and you will see them no more. And if
Mhm.
we break that down into plain language, it is, don't be concerned about the outward circumstances that you think you're seeing. Stand still, just stand still, relax, just be where you are, right? And, you know, the Egyptians in this case are just the enemies or the foes or the troubles and challenges that you are facing.
Mhm.
Allow Jehovah, which is the energy of the universe, the energy and love of God, the truth, the bigger truth of, you know, the truth with capital T of your being, allow that to come forth. Focus on that. And, you know, and then you won't, you know, your truth will stand for you and allow that, allow those challenges to be mitigated, and will cover you. And so I've been, like I said, I've been standing up and fighting the storm. And today's Thursday. So Tuesday, I think I was pushing, I know I was pushing a little too hard. Um, and I got what I call this mystery illness that just seems to take me down out of nowhere. But it doesn't really come out of nowhere. It comes from um, a big expression of energy that my body can't handle. And
Mhm.
so it shuts me down for a little bit to allow time for me to let the energy work and move through. And
Mhm.
then, you know, it passes in a couple of days. Well, this one was a little bit different because it was slow in coming on. So I had some time, as opposed to normally when it comes on like that, literally within 2 minutes.
Mhm.
It's already got a hold of me. And this time I could feel it happening. So I was like, well, let me just take a minute, go prepare, prepare my bed so I could go lie down. And I'm going to take a shower, even though I'm clean. I'm just going to take another shower to make sure that, you know, I'm good. And
Mhm.
while I was in the shower, because the shower is always the place where I do my best thinking.
Yeah, me too.
Right. Um, we're all so much alike, but
Yeah.
and that's super super cool. Um, I'm talking to myself and talking to God, and I'm like, look, I'm standing up and I'm doing the work, and I hear the voice of spirit come back to me just as forcefully. I know, and it's time for you to sit down and let me take care of this. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, oh, oh. So I just relaxed and I spent my day as well. I spent the rest of that day under the blankets with the chills and the nonsense.
Mhm.
Um, and The next day felt better, but I knew my mind wasn't quite right. Like I was still kind of, what if things don't happen? Not quite negative because I know better than that, but not 1,000% positive, which is where I need to be in order for these things to happen. And I was like, well, I'm just going to take the day. Like, just because I'm physically okay does not mean I am okay. And so I probably needed just another day of laying on the couch and um, resting through this. And so I did.
Mhm.
And I did make myself feel guilty, which I think is something we too often do.
I'm
We feel,
so guilty of that.
yeah, we feel bad for taking time away when,
Mhm.
or time off when obviously we need it. And fast forward to today where, I felt a little better. Yeah. But I wasn't quite ready for this podcast because I'm still being plagued by these things. And I'm like, you know what? Let me go do what I normally do, which is to shower, which is to do yoga, and which is to
Mhm.
meditate.
Mhm.
And doing those things, because that's my normal practice, and maintaining to that put me in a space where I did feel better. And I went from being, man, to the normal Kesha that you all are used to seeing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And at 12 o'clock, when I'm like rushing because I got to do my makeup, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be late. And I rush back into the office and I check my phone, and it's at 12 o'clock. And I'm like, great, I'm right on time. And I see that I've gotten a text message, and I'm thinking it's going to be from someone I love that I texted earlier this morning. And I check it, and damn if it's not a direct deposit for nearly the amount of money that I need that's going to solve this problem.
Good.
Right? And I think two things happened. One, all of these things that I've just gone through and recited for you, doing your normal practice, not giving into the fear of what might be and what we imagine, staying true to your beliefs, like all of those things help prepare the way, most definitely. Um, you also have to be willing to cut off any nonsense that you know is draining your power and doesn't serve you, and that would take you out of alignment if you gave it energy to. And something else that I did this morning that I think is pivotal is that someone, some nonsense, I don't usually get, I'm not on Facebook, but someone
Mhm.
reached out to me, and I was like, I'm not interested in this nonsense.
Mhm.
But I left the channel of communication open.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, no, I'm taking, when I do a meditation and I tell you all to take your power back, I do mean that energetically, but sometimes we have to do things in the physical. And in this
Mhm.
case, I was like, I'm blocking this person because I don't want any of their nonsense interfering with my energy.
Mhm.
And then someone who, we have friends, they say for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Um, I had someone who was a friend for a reason and a season, and they disappointed me one too many times last week.
Yeah.
And I have held that line open. And I think it was because out of respect for our friendship and what had transpired between us.
Mhm.
But then I recognized that their failure this second time around is not something I'm going to tolerate. I
Yeah.
can't, I cannot have fragile people near me. I can
Mhm.
help those who are fragile, and we all have fragile moments, but I can't have someone who says they are my friend who wilts under the answer of, hey, how are you? Like that's just not going to work, right?
Yeah.
And there were other things that were said and done that made that, that relationship, as I saw it in the bigger picture, untenable. And I realized that I was leaving that line of communication open, thinking, how sometimes women, I think, are more guilty of this than men, but we date
Mhm.
potential as
Yeah.
opposed to dating the person that's in front of us. It was
Yep.
one of those things where it's holding out the energy, thinking on the potential of what might be. And I'm like, screw that. This person is not going to be able to meet me where I am. They don't see who I've become and how I am. And
Yeah.
so I deleted their contacts. I deleted all of our messages. I deleted all of our emails
Mhm.
because I'm saying no to that. So
Yeah.
there is the process one, saying yes firmly with both feet, 10 toes down, with all of the power of the sun, saying yes to the things that we want in the way that we want them. and believing in ourselves enough that we are the magicians, we control our fate,
Mm-hmm.
and we can work with our energies to make it so. And the other side of that is saying no to anything that's not in alignment with that.
Yeah.
And the difference is, you know, between 8:30, 8:39 and 12:39 is I had that 4 hours to go through that, and I am a completely different person now, and I'm back to being the Kesha that you all are used to seeing.
Right.
Um, yeah, and it's live as normally as possible in the face of challenges. Don't share your business with everybody. You might have one or two trusted people that you talk to, but it's not something, whatever you're dealing with is not to be shared with everyone because that dilutes your power. And even when you're talking about it with your trusted one or two people, I'll give you a moment of woe is me, but the conversations ultimately need to be productive. It can't just be a venting session about why aren't things working for me? Why isn't it happening? Right?
Right.
There's some of that questioning, and of course that's natural, but the conversation still should end with or bring you back around to, if they're your trusted people, should bring you back around to the truth of yourself, which is, I know you can handle this. The only reason this is coming up for you is because it's coming up for healing, and there's nobody I know better who can handle that than you. And I say that not about me, or not just
Mm-hmm.
about me, but about everyone, because every challenge that you have constructed for your own benefit and for your own growth.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has the tools that you have to deal with your problems. And so it's a matter of you going within and asking your spirit, what are my tools? What am I guided to do? How do I best use them? And that is how we meet our challenges. And of course, there are the little things that are really not little, but I mean, we notice the blessings that happen along the way. I can't tell you how many little synchronicities, $100 here and there, $400 here and there, um, uh, people that don't normally reach out to me, reaching out, um, and just to say, I love you. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, just, you have to recognize all those things. You have to be in gratitude for those things. And if for no other reason, then a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So if you're giving your power and attention to the things that are troubling you, at the same time, you are trying to hold a higher vision of yourself, well, you're going to get the composite of the two, which is going to be lower vibrational naturally than the higher thing that you're going for. So
Yes.
let's recognize that this is over here, but I'm not going to give it any power of attention. I'm going to focus all of my energy up here and over here. That is how we meet these challenges. Depending on what school of metaphysical thought or spiritual thought you're in, sometimes that's called uh, turning the golden key,
Mm-hmm.
where you turn your attention away from the challenges and things that are bothering you, and you turn your attention back to spirit, God, creator, whatever that is for you, and focus only on that, because that is your higher power expressing, and that's ultimately where you want to be. So you have to keep your mind focused and go back to that. But then the question is, okay, so how do I stop the thoughts? How do I stop from feeling the way that I'm feeling? Because I'm feeling this way, and I'm feeling this way because of what I'm seeing. Stop
Mm-hmm.
looking at it. Doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist, but just put it off to the side for just a second. What does the highest and best of you look like? What does that life look like? What does that feel like? Reach for those feelings, and where you can feel those feelings and express them, um, most authentically, right? And that can
Mm-hmm.
usually start for us, and I hope for the rest of you, my goodness, meditation. Because
Yes.
meditation is the idea of stopping all thought and allowing space for the universe to be there, right?
Yeah.
So we've got, we meditate to silence the thought. And even just that small step, even if you can only do it for 5 minutes, and even if you only get a break from your thoughts in the last 2 seconds, we'll say yay, because you made some progress, and you can always
Yeah.
come back to it a little bit later. So I'd have to say that meditation is key. gratitude is another one. Because again, if we go back to a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, you can't hold a thought about something negative going on at the same time you're trying to express gratitude. So lean into the gratitude. And no matter how small it is, and I know the small things aren't as exciting as the big things, but it really doesn't matter because it's the gratitude and the expression, the recognition of and the expression of gratitude that's important, right? You're reorienting your thoughts and what you're looking at. Um, if you seek the good and praise it, there's going to be more to see because what you focus on expands. And I know it sounds like I'm giving you a lot of metaphysical isms, but they all are true and they all apply and they're real and they're solid. You know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just, this is how we overcome and how we meet the challenge because for every time we go back to an old way of trying to solve a problem or we give into the false reality of our problems being bigger than they are, then we make ourselves smaller and we have to travel that distance again in order to become bigger to surmount them. And I don't know about you and the rest of you, but I'm done with that nonsense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just have to get on it and stay on it and stay focused on the bigger picture and the truth of our being, which is we are unlimited and reality is just fluid. It's not the hard surface we think it is just because I knock on it and it makes a sound. It's all particles and waves based on what we turn our attention to. And we just need to be better stewards of our mind's thoughts.
I absolutely 110% agree with everything that you said. Um, yeah, I've been having quite a bit of trouble, for months now. Um, but I'm going through a cycle right now where I'm having trouble feeling grateful and maintaining the grateful feeling.
Mm,
So, and I think the reason for that is that I'm wanting to majorly change things up.
mm-hmm,
How I do my business. I'm figuring out that what I'm doing is not sustainable for many different reasons.
mm-hmm,
And I'm kind of going through it with some things I have going on and trying to find a better direction forward. And so it always takes me quite a bit to process things. And I usually go through a grieving period whenever I'm trying to switch things up
mm-hmm,
and, switch my focus up. And so when you were saying, get a break from your thoughts for a minute, if I wasn't meditating or doing yoga or had my discipline and my ritual practice that I do, I would be a dumpster fire.
right,
And so I know that I can at least rely on my spirituality to get me through these really tough times.
mm-hmm,
When you're in a situation that you don't really want to be in, you feel stuck, you feel like there's nowhere to turn. I was talking about this. I have a spiritual roundtable that I do with my clients and students once a month. The last one was focused on pretty much this right here, is that how important your spiritual path is and how integral it is to you maintaining your sanity, right? Because when everything is falling apart, what can you always turn to with complete and utter faith? Your spiritual path, right? Whatever that looks like for you. And it requires discipline. And even on days when you just don't feel like doing those things, you don't feel like showing up, you don't want to do it, I always try and manage to force myself to do it anyways, and I feel 100 times better after.
yeah,
Because I stuck with it and I did it anyway. But I
yeah.
think
I think
people
you
get
have
stuck in that. Like they think, "Oh god, I missed a couple of days. I've ruined everything," and then just give up, right?
no. So a couple of things, like one. I think when we get faced with the set of challenges, especially when they're coming one right after the other like that, um, it's really important to come into agreement. And what I mean by that is to not fight it, to not go into, whoa, it's me. Why is this happening? Why does this always happen? Whenever I try to take a step forward, I get taken 20 steps back. Like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop for a second and just recognize, okay, this is where I am. This is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And just breathe. Like,
Yeah.
just the act of not being resistant to it frees you up tremendously to be able to start to handle it. Now, notice I
Yeah.
didn't say that the first step is to rush right out and do something. No, it's
Mm-hmm.
just to stop,
Mm-hmm.
breathe, and be in agreement. Like, just
Yeah.
recognize that it is. And
Acceptance.
yeah, because, and that's where, once you can accept, okay, this is what's going on, this is what's happening. Okay. Um, then that second phase of trusting your spiritual path, like you said, you already know, and it's hard to remember this when you're at the beginning of it, but
Mm-hmm.
you already know that on the other side of your practice is you feeling better. And you know this because 1,000 times before you've been in the same spot where you didn't want to do it, and then you just somehow you did it and you felt better. And so you know what that's like, but at the beginning of it, you're like, still, I don't want to do it. You have to remember that your practices and on your path are serving you, and you just have to do it anyway. And
Even when it doesn't
sometimes,
feel like it.
even when you
Even
don't
when it
feel like,
doesn't feel like it.
and it doesn't mean that, okay, so if your standard practice is 30 minutes of yoga, 30 minutes of meditation, but you already know that you don't have it in you, getting dressed for yoga and meditation might be as far as you get. Getting out the mat and sitting on the mat might be as far as you get. Just turning from side to side might be as far as you get. But if you
Mm-hmm.
can do just that much, just
Mm-hmm.
get started, that might encourage you enough to go through the full practice. But even if you can't
Absolutely.
do 30 minutes, the fact that you got dressed, you got on your mat and you sat on your and you got on the mat, that's already the win,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you go to meditation and your mind is absolutely all over the place, the fact that you sat down with the intention of trying to meditate, okay, like, did you close your eyes? Did you at least take one breath? Did you at least try? That that is the win. In yoga we talk about how um your expression of the poses can be different from day to day. Our bodies are changing all
Mm-hmm.
the time, and some days we can do things that other days we just can't.
Right.
So it's not about comparing today's practice to another practice. It's where you are now, and as
Mm-hmm.
long as you're doing it, you're doing it. And the other part is that whatever your expression in that pose is that day, that is the benefit of the pose for you. It doesn't mean that if normally you can touch your head to your toes, but today you can't even bend over, that you somehow failed. No, our bodies are variable and conditions are different every day. And
Yep.
so we accept that. And I think where we get into, like, this is where our um, Western patriarchal mind kind of gets a hold of us, is that we compare ourselves to other people. And like that Western colonial mindset is, I'm looking at other people to see what they have, to see what I can take from them, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
basis of all of that. But we know better because we're on a spiritual path. But we still compare ourselves either to ourselves or to other people. And so on the day that we can't bend as far, we think, oh, there's something wrong, I'm not doing as well, not recognizing the truth that to do it at all is enough.
Yes.
And that's where I think, um, we fail.
Usually when I'm feeling like that, if it's really bad, I'll cut my hour-long routine down to 30 minutes or
Of
15
course.
minutes or,
Yeah, because we don't want to force ourselves when we can't. Like,
yeah,
when we know we can't, it's like, let's give ourselves grace and be like, you know what, today's not an hour-long day.
yeah,
Today 15 minutes was more than enough, and I'm okay with that. And to
yeah.
let ourselves be okay, I think again, going back to like, I spent 2 days not doing, man, look, on Monday, I set myself the task for the week. This was going to be a week of completion. All these
Mm-hmm.
little tasks that I got sitting around my desk and in my kitchen and all this stuff, I'm getting it done this week.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's getting by me. It's all getting finished.
Mm-hmm.
I look up Tuesday and Wednesday, I can't move. So
Yeah.
naturally, things haven't been completed. But if I had spent those 2 days holding on to that thought of I'm getting all this stuff done, oh, I'm failing because I'm sitting on the couch, I would have been in agreement with where I was in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's, that stretching is where the pain comes from,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, I do
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Feel
see
like,
me, I'm a chronic procrastinator, and so it's like if I'm not doing something and I'm making myself miserable while I'm thinking about doing it and not doing it at the same time.
so it's better to just make the
It's
decision,
yeah, just it's like
right?
just sit down
Make the
and do it.
decision. Yeah, either make the decision to do it or make the decision, okay, I'm not going to do it, and be done with it, what either way. But I think we cause the most consternation when we know there's something we need to do. We're letting ourselves decide not to do it, but we're
Mhm.
feeling bad about not doing it. Like, stop the
Yeah.
nonsense. If you're going to do it, do it. If not, don't. Like, cut out the nonsense in the middle, and that way you can be fully present in whatever you are doing, even if it is running barefoot through the forest. Like, that has value. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely does.
yeah.
Kesha, thank you so much for all that valuable information. You always get me rerouted. You always manage to get my ass rerouted when
Look,
I'm
I'm just
feeling
trying to stay
sorry.
on the path and take as many of y'all with me as possible. I need
When
friends up in this piece.
girl, every time you do, like I'll be getting in that period of like, oh, I'm depressed. Oh, I just don't know, and like I talk to you for 42 minutes and here we go. Like I'm back, baby, and
Exactly. That's what
so
I said to myself today. I'm like, I'm not getting this. Like, you can't get me. My challenges are not over, but damn it, I'm getting over them. Like,
yeah,
y'all are not gonna get. I know too much at this point to let this shit get me now. And I say that to everybody. We have come too far to come only this far. The fuck is wrong with that? Like,
yeah,
no, no, no. And
yeah,
so there is the no power, right? That I will not accept this condition, the denial, the power of denial. I am not going to accept this. This is not real for me. You can tell your problems no.
yeah,
Um, and it takes a strong will, but you can do that,
yeah,
you know? And I think, you know, Kesha from 10 years ago would have looked at this and been like, oh, that's a mountain. Like, I can't climb that.
yeah,
But now it's like, shit, I'm an eagle looking down on it. Let me just fly over to the next one. Like,
yeah,
you and if you don't have, and I say this to all of you who are watching,
hmm,
if you don't have it, find someone who does and draft into their current, you know?
yeah.
Um,
Yes, I do that all the time. When
yeah,
you're having your moment, you're like scrolling on social media or something, and you'll see this really profound, like motivational quote. That happened to me this morning. And I seen it, I was like, "Ah, God, get your shit together, Megan. Like, we're not gonna go down this road. We're not doing this." And then I come on here and talk to you, and you got me right back on track. So I it doesn't hurt to get inspiration from something else. We always see things just at the moment that we need to see them. The key is recognizing
mm-hmm,
when that's happening,
yeah,
right? And a good way to do that is to keep yourself at center all the time. And it's hard to do that when you get worked up and things aren't going the way you want them to go. Well, okay, I've learned to accept that and not be attached to an outcome.
Right.
And that's, when I mentor people, I tell them that all the time. And I think sometimes they really don't understand what that means. And even when I'm trying to read tarot for people, don't get attached to the outcome.
Hmm.
And trying to explain that concept to someone is really hard. And I'm human, I'm fallible. I fall back into those ruts, but now the difference between me and Megan 10 years ago is that I know how to get myself back on track. It may take me a minute, but I know the difference now, just like you were saying. I'm the exact same way. Like I would have been all over the place. Now that I've been able to rein it in, I'm able to focus on the things that I need to focus on. It may take me a while to realize what's going on, but when I talk to beautiful people like you and, see these things back to, circle back around about, ride somebody else's wave if you need to get your breath back, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's I think too, something that hopefully I can, well, get better in my own practice, and certainly I want to teach to others, is when things aren't working out the way we thought, our immediate thought is it's not working out and we look down.
Mhm.
I need us to be like, what if it's working out better than I could have planned? I mean, I did,
Mhm.
after all, ask that spirit be involved. I did, after all, ask that the universe help me. So if it doesn't look like what I wanted it to look like, maybe it's because it's turning out better. And I don't know what that's going to look like because I haven't experienced better before, but
Mhm.
better is certainly what I wanted. So rather than thinking, oh, this is a bad thing, let's think, what if this is the best thing ever?
Yeah.
Like, and that's how, what that's one of those ways that you can come into agreement with something. Instead of being like, oh, no, 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 this is such a horrible, no, like, what if it's working out better than I realized? What if it's, you know, so if, I guess it's been a couple of months. Um, I don't know if I just, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
you're good. You're good.
Okay. Um, I we A group of us were working on the affirmation. Everything always works out for me. And the week that we were doing that, I kept reciting it all day, every day. And there were like five or six major things that week that went to shit. But I'm like, everything always works out for me, so I'm not going to pay attention to reality,
Mhm.
or that reality of that situation. And sure enough, it turned around and everything works out. And because that wasn't the focus for every week, I had kind of like drift away from that. But in this last week, I'm like, look, I've got too much at stake right now to be playing with any energy other than what I know is real and true.
Yep.
So everything always works out for me. I don't care what it looks like in the moment. You better fucking work out for me right now because it has to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went back to that. And that's where I was like, why am I assuming that, like, all these major things that I have asked for, why would I think that they're not working out for me, if just because my world is rocking a little bit? Isn't that
Mhm.
the sign? If when we ask for things to be okay, we always come to, we are where we are and we're having our challenges and we quote unquote brought to our knees, right? We ask for spirit in whatever way that is to show up for us. Well, of course, it would require some sort of change, because if what
Yeah.
you were living
Mhm.
was already perfect, you wouldn't be having the problem and you wouldn't be asking for things to change. So when
Absolutely.
they so when they start to change, why do we think, "Oh no, shit, I'm having problems." No, that's your shit being sorted out. Like, come
Yeah.
on. And
Yeah.
I'm laughing, and I'm not laughing at you all. Believe me, I'm
Mhm.
laughing at me because I have been there too many times. But it's just like, yeah, like, you're asking for it to change to be better. All right, well, let me pull you out of the mire and put you where I want you. But that
Mhm.
pulling you out of the mire, you've been stuck there for a while, so you're a little bit rooted. It's gonna hurt. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a little messy.
Yeah.
But just like it is when we repot plants, we make a little bit of a mess as we go from the smaller plant to the bigger one. We tap those roots, right? Shake all
Mhm.
that excess loose dirt off. We cut off any of the roots that don't like, what's it, they, like with bonsais you can cut up to a third. Like you cut
Mhm.
off the roots that you don't need, or that maybe you're a little sickly. All of those processes are going to hurt. Being uprooted, having your roots shaken, being cut off, and then you're prepared for this, being prepared for this beautiful, beautiful soil in a lovely pot that's bigger, that's going to give you room to grow. And we
Yes.
went through that, and we made a mess in the process. Like, but we're going to clean that up,
Yeah.
and you're going to be a beautiful potted plant in a bigger pot, ready to grow in a new space. And there we are. And now we forget that there's this dirt and nonsense in the middle. And I
Yes.
just, like, I think it's really important that instead of thinking that that's the problem, recognizing, oh, this is my solution coming forward for me. This is me
Yes.
being this is me being pruned so that I can be lush and beautiful.
Mhm.
And
And
I,
it's
I
so hard
just,
to see that when you're in the middle of it.
which is why you need solid friends around you to remind
Yeah.
you of that, and why you cut off anybody that can't hold it, because
Yeah.
we got too much to do. Our dreams are too big for
Yeah.
us to falter with, you know,
Yes. And that's why I'm
because
so
we,
grateful for you because you're always a voice of reason. You know,
well, this is about to
there's
turn into a love fest.
yes, it is. And you've it really is true because like a lot of people have fallen out of my life recently. I mean,
Mhm.
in droves.
Yeah,
And when it
good
was
for
happening,
you. I
right.
know.
I mean, and then when it was happening, I'm like, what in the holy bleep bleep? What the hell is this ever gonna stop? Like, I can't take it anymore. And then I'm like,
Right,
well, duh, you don't need them anymore. You don't
right.
need them anymore. They're not true friends anyway. They're not going to show up for you when in the ways that you really need them to the most. And it is hard to find quality, authentic relationships these days. And especially for me, something that I have to work on is, expressing my emotions better in a more healthy way instead of, running from deep connections with people. That's something I chronically suffer from. And so now I've whittled my friend group down to about 3, because it's
Yeah.
and those are the ones that show up for me authentically, that and unconditionally. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of people have trouble with that when they're trying to figure it. I did. Absolutely had trouble with that. That's a huge deal to have a good support system around you as you're going through this stuff. And I absolutely agree with you about how get rid of the ones that aren't doing that for you and don't think twice about it because you're
No,
setting
and
yourself up for
it's
something good, right? We don't have time for this
right.
shit, you know?
Yeah. I don't have time for someone that's going to, you know, and I want to give this person grace, or anybody that's been in my world. I want to give them grace and be like, not everybody knows exactly what I need when I need it, and I may not always be great at articulating what I
Mhm.
need. Um, but in this case, I felt justified, one, because this isn't the first time this has happened. And there was also an insult, like, kind of thrown in there on it, and unfortunately, it was the kind of, if somebody actively insults you and they know they're doing it, that's one thing. But if they don't know they're doing it because the way they think causes them to say what they really, if the way they think they're okay with causes them to say something that's completely out of pocket,
Mhm.
that's something entirely. Because it's one thing when
Yeah.
someone's actually trying to hurt you, but it's another thing when just the way that they think and act is going to be hurtful. um and I was like, I think I gave as much grace as I possibly could, but to do any more, to extend any more, would have cut against me. And I'm like, well, I can't have that. I can't,
Mhm.
you know but I think we all, and I as much as I am a proponent of cutting out people that don't serve, I don't say that as if you aren't doing for me, you can't be in my world.
Yeah, no, it's not
It's
like that at all. I
it's
didn't mean
it's
for it to come off
it's
that way.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, it didn't. And I
Okay.
and I just want to clarify, but that may be a longer discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just, you know your heart, you know how you feel, and if every time you think about that person, it doesn't send your heart into giddiness and joy, if it doesn't, if your heart doesn't respond with, oh, I'm at home, this is my safe space,
Mm-hmm.
anything less, I mean, I, at least me, and I can't speak for anybody else, I can't have anybody in my world who doesn't provide either of those things to me. If when I
Mm-hmm.
think about you, I don't feel like I'm at home, this is my safe space,
Mm-hmm.
um, or if I feel like I have to be measured and careful about what I say, or do, because I already know that you can't handle it. I mean, if I'm having a problem, I need to deal with it in all of me. I can't be apart. And so, yeah, and I think part of it too is my father used to say to me, Kesha, there's some people you're going to have to drop by the wayside. And so I grew up with that teaching always kind of in the back of my mind. Like, you just need to recognize when people are not for you, and
Mm-hmm.
in whatever way that means. And now especially, we're doing we're doing the best we can, and we're trying to do something that's bigger than us.
Yes.
And we need people around us who, even if they can't understand our vision, they love us unconditionally and can support us, trusting that we know what we need
Mm-hmm.
and that we will be able to achieve it. And
Right.
I think that's hard for people sometimes, because they think that, oh, well, if in order for me to fully support you, I have to be on board with what you're doing. And it's like, no, if you love me, you will trust me and
Mm-hmm.
support me, but that doesn't mean that you have to like everything I like or do what I do, or it's just, you have to just be there.
Yeah,
you
and
know
a big part of that, what you just said, is showing up authentically for yourself, which is the premise of this entire video,
yeah.
right? That is part of showing up for yourself authentically, who you are, knowing what your needs are, and not settling for something that's not gonna, benefit you in the
No,
long run.
no,
Yeah.
we're definitely past the time of making do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we and if you're watching this, and obviously you've been in this, and you
Mhm.
recognize that old structures have fallen away.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that time of just, I'm gonna make do with this until something better comes along. No, no, go ahead and let
Mhm.
that shit fall and be without for a minute, and allow the thing that is supposed to hold you up replace it. We're
Yes.
just, yeah, we're just too far along, and it's not going to be there for you anyway. So you would be spending your energy trying to recoup something that doesn't even exist, or you would be
Right.
looking for it in places where it did, but there's going to be so far beneath you and out of alignment with who you are, that you would have to abandon your path to make use of it. Now, who would want that? Not after all the work that we've done.
No.
Again, we've come too far to come only this far. And so, even if it feels a little desolate and unsure, trust in your path. Find your people who are speaking to you,
Yeah.
and keep going. I don't
Yes.
think, and I say this even for me, like, I'm not sure exactly where it is and when it's coming, but I know it's close, and I know that we've traversed too much ground to turn back, because if we were shown where we are, it would be like a foot in front of us. you know
Right.
it's so close. We just need to hold strong, hold steady, and keep going.
That reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Carl Jung, and he basically says that if the path before you is clear, then you're on someone else's.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
And,
I never,
I
yeah.
right? So I always try to remind myself of that while I'm going along, and, for us, it's never super clear.
But we have all the tools. We
Yes.
have all the tools, we have all the resources, we have the guidance, we can. And man, look at how much if you ever needed assurance about your ability to overcome, think about the fact that you are here and how
Yes.
much you have overcome to get to this point.
Yes.
So yeah, like truly, and I can't say this strongly enough, you have got this. We will
Yes.
make it through.
Yes.
And you know, it's the only thing I'm sure of.
Yes. Yes. I think that's a great point to go ahead and end this. I think we got our point across and then some with this. And I hope that, you guys listening, I hope we've really helped you. I know things are rough right now. I know you're human. You're going to have moments. Just hang in there. Show up authentically for yourself. And
And
Keisha,
this is
thank
the
you
message
so
for all
much.
time. Yeah,
Yes.
like even like whenever you hear this, it'll be for you. It's
Yes.
this is ageless wisdom. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Keisha, again for coming on and continuing to do this with me. It's the highlight of my month. I really enjoy talking to
Mine
you.
too. And I wouldn't give it
Yeah.
for the world. So yeah, I'm so glad we
Yes.
do this.
Yes, absolutely. Well, tell everyone where they can find you. And her services are fantastic, by the way. You guys are missing out if you don't give it a whirl. Um, her YouTube channel is fantastic. If you're looking to get into meditating, she's your gal. But tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. On YouTube at Wealth of Myself, on Instagram at Textarot, and also Wealth of Myself.
Okay. So thank you guys for sticking around. Really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed already, I would really appreciate it if you would and head on over to Keisha's page and subscribe for her too. This will be going up on Spotify, Apple, and a couple of others. I do have a podcast now. So thank you guys for sticking around. I wish you all the best. We will see you again next month. Bye, guys.